Abdurrahman,
Adnan, how are you doing, man?
welcome
Thank you.
to Talking Dead.
Talking Dead.
Talking Dead.
That's the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that.
Have you watched The Walking Dead?
I mean, I haven't. I've heard enough of it.
Yeah, I haven't either.
And seen enough memes. Exactly.
Someone just brought it up, like, why do we call it Talking Dead? I was like, I think it sounds cool.
The Talking Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually a good name.
I think so much of the club is just like driven by the name itself. You know what I mean? The name is like a whoa.
But you don't want the dead atmosphere, though.
No, it's ironic.
It is.
I think.
But honestly, I love what you did with the image of the club. If I'm being honest, it's very hip.
I mean, I like what you guys are doing now because prior to you becoming president, I mean, I think you're a new president, right?
Yeah, pretty.
Yeah. So prior to you becoming the book club president, I think there wasn't a lot of events happening, but now it's like very interactive, right?
I think there was some events, but it was very centered around a few people sitting down together and getting to know each other and stuff. It's not a very good way to expand on the, on the club, getting more participants. And we also needed to double down on the publicity of it. But in element, the problem with the book club is that its name is the book club, right? So people think, oh, books. I'm good, thanks.
Like a bunch of nerds, it's not cool.
I read enough in school, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I got forced enough in school. But we're not talking about that type of reading, at least in the club. We're talking about the daily reading you do, whether you're reading fiction or you're reading non-fiction, manga or any others. The point is that there's a story to be told and there's a moral in the story. Really, that's the approach we're handling. So we have a much wider scope to deal with than the previous generation.
I mean, is this something you've done since childhood? Like a lot of reading? Are you like actually a proper book reader?
I mean, I read a lot, but I wouldn't say I've read mostly like a lot of books. I read in terms of like I enjoy reading encyclopedias. I go into Wikipedia and I just get stuck there. God damn it! Like you know how those little links. I get too curious about every little link that I see, and I go into a chain of just. It ends up being a loop, and I'm just staring at my screen for hours, just being building all my fun facts.
I think my problem with Wikipedia is that it's a good hub, but at the same time, there's so much false information.
Oh, dude, it's so corruptible.
It's so fucked.
So corruptible.
There's so much wrong information all around.
Yeah,
that's the place you expect everyone to go to, and that's where all the wrong information is.
I used to genuinely question why people don't use it as a source. Like I would hear lecturers say, "Don't use Wikipedia as a source." I never understood why, until I realized that you can just go in there and edit it. Like you could put whatever you want on there, and everyone would roll with it.
True, I've seen a lot of dumb shit on Wikipedia, and you can edit it. It's
who I respect? I respect the people who constantly update that shit. Like whenever someone dies, they're waiting on the
put in the
keyboard,
effort.
right?
Yeah.
They're psychopaths, just waiting for
all that stuff's gonna be taken over by AI, man.
Oh, I didn't even think about AI in that approach.
But how much of narratives can AI control too? Because all the reference AI gets is from other sources. Then it comes down to AI having to check AI.
So you're saying that's corruptible too?
Well, it's gonna be AI versus AI. My AI is better than your AI.
Oh, okay, that's boring. And then what do we get to do? Just watch?
Well, I think as long as you have human beings, you also have the need for power. And as long as the biological human exists, we're not gonna push that button, let's give the power to AI.
Yeah, let's not get into the Terminator sequence of events. Because I think at the end of the day, honestly, there needs, for us, like you said, we always have this thirst for power. So there's always going to be someone who's regulating that stuff.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about AI is that it blew up so quickly, I don't really think anyone regulated it, or enough at least.
Well, to be honest, AI is not something that, this is something I learned recently.
Okay.
I thought it was a new thing.
All right.
It's not at all.
Oh?
Yeah, it's been the worst for the past 20, 30 years. We've just been eased into it. You know what I mean? The chat GPT, what we get today, is the consumer usable version. But they've been using these systems forever, It's just getting the consumers to adapt to this. Like tech had to evolve to a point where people are so used to Googling things, so used to getting easy access, to a point where people are like, okay, everything is fast enough, people are used to this. Because people can't comprehend a lot of high tech that already exists, that we don't know about. The governments and military, you already have. So AI is one of those things that if they had started to incorporate these things back, because if you look at the COVID era, tech had to evolve like decades when something that would take normally 30 years, right? That's why the AI thing came in fast too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be living today talking about AI so casually.
We only talk about it, and like to be honest, the first time that it became such a massive thing, like you said, is ChatGPT, for example, or those response-based AIs. But there have been terrible versions in the past that didn't work out. But I still don't think it's regulated enough. At least in the sense that there could be a lot of things. Or have you heard about the copyright thing with artists? So a lot of people just go into these prompt-based AIs that you put up a prompt and it shows up a photo.
And it's generally impressive.
It is, but at the same time, it's dangerous. So you can type, I want to make an art about whatever, buildings, a field, and for example, a Van Gogh style. And that's not really a problem. Van Gogh style, he's not going to be like, yo, that's
a lot of references.
That's my stuff. Like, don't do that. It's not exactly a reference. It takes the style itself and just absorbs it, puts it in there. But then with actual living artists who are working for a living, you're taking away from their source of income.
There's two sides to this. There are people who are optimists who look at things, like this is a tool, this is only going to elevate our scope of work. And to a degree, I agree with them. Okay. But there's also people who look at it in the Terminator way because I've watched too many movies.
Yes.
Another thing is, I have to be on the fence about it. I'm too uneducated to talk about this.
And I feel you here.
But the thing is, I do agree with the optimists a little bit in the sense like, hey man, human beings have always done this. This has been the course of humanity.
That's true.
We always improve things. And it's not going to be like, for example, when people say jobs are going to die, we never look at, because we're pessimists, we never look at the jobs that are going to be created as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when you create AI, you also need people who have to learn how to maintain the AI.
That's true.
So that's a new job created.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I genuinely think if AI was regulated enough, I think it could be something that could drive a society forward. Like there's many jobs where sure, you wouldn't want to replace people, but if eventually everyone has found a job maintaining the AI system, then why don't you let the AI do jobs like cashiers or, for example, just any type of one-on-one interaction that is just going to be simple and straightforward.
To be honest, the stuff that I feel like needs to be replaced, certain things that I feel like it won't hurt humans too much. There are a lot of things we do try to be sustainable for our, just environment in general. I feel like those kind of things
I think that's horse shit. I'm sorry, excuse my language, but most of the sustainability talk that I see around the world, it feels more like a secret word, like a secret words people use to get into stuff.
Yeah, what I'm talking about really is not that. What I'm saying is like there are jobs that humans put the effort into. Right?
Yeah.
So certain things like that is like an extra step for us because all of us just want to make money, get by our day. All sustainability talk is like PR bullshit. I get that. I agree with you. But the things that do help, the small things, I feel like AI can easily take over those.
Yeah. And the sad thing, I'm pessimistic too, by the way. The sad thing about this situation is that we're talking about a perfect situation where you have AI doing the jobs no one wants to do. Mm-hmm. So you take the people who are doing these jobs and you facilitate them to a better job, let's say. But most of the time, you're going to find people interested in replacing the jobs without actually giving these people a job that they, could do better for them or improving themselves. But that's always been there in society. You always find people who are, neglected at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's an elitist thing. Like when you're humans, you always have the hierarchical thing.
You can only have people thriving if there's people.
True. For example, we're gonna have this Neuro-link stuff. I think you know a little bit, right?
Yeah, so, that's very interesting.
For example, you were chipped up, and now you have advantage maybe on some other people. Mm-hmm. But there's also how much it costs, how many people can afford it. Yeah. I feel like there's always this race to let's keep the rich, or exactly. So there.
Because it's if that chip, for example, assists you in your daily thinking in such a way that you can actually be more productive, or you can do more jobs, or whatever it is, it can get you more bucks. That's the idea.
And the way
how's the poor person supposed to get it?
Exactly, because it's always the poor though. Like the way I see it, right? It's like this. It's like because back in the day, survival of the fittest was about being strong and all that stuff. Then it's about having wealth, and now it's about being smart and having wealth.
Yeah.
So it is a hot take, but I feel like the first human extinction that will happen in mass is that lower wage income earners. That's the first one that will disappear completely. You won't have those anymore.
I mean, I honestly don't think that you could really have an extension of that. Have you realized that? A few things come to mind when you're talking about this, but have you realized that have you heard about the fertility rates around the world dropping in general?
No.
Right? This is the thing. So basically in certain countries like Korea, for example, you have I just watched the video about this. I'm very knowledgeable all of a sudden.
Cool.
Essentially, they have a birth rate of 0.8 people. Okay, that means, if I'm not mistaken, per year, the number of people who are available to reproduce are less and less. So you go from 16 people to 18 people to 8 people, 4 people, and so on and so forth. Right? This I can believe would lead to that's is the thing, and it's actually could lead to an extinction on a country scale. But on the other end of the spectrum, where you're talking about poor people or people in the lower wage end of the spectrum, I don't think they can ever really disappear. Because, like I said, first of all, for people to thrive and be super strong, there needs to be someone who's super weak, right? So they would never outright get rid of them. They just want to keep them struggling down there, right? But also, the idea is for example, in places like Africa in the past, you would find families with 8 to 13 siblings, plus more sometimes. Why do you think that is? It's not because they can sustain that or they're rich.
Lack of education too.
It's partially that probably, but it's not. That's not the idea. The idea is that back then things were so hard. Not even back then, even now in some places of the world, things are so hard. You can't really guarantee even 5 of your kids survive if you have
survival
13.
rate was crazy.
Exactly. So the survival rate could be low, but they'll just reproduce more on that side of the spectrum. And actually, in fact, if you look at Africa right now, they would have some of the higher fertility rates in the world compared to Korea. You know, so we say lack of education led Africa to that, but then you look at Korea or Japan and you see them getting depopulated. Apparently, you can go on countrysides and you can see entire villages in Japan that are almost uninhabited, schools that are empty. You know, so at the end of the day, I don't really think you could have an extinction based on.
Fair. Good point. And okay, but I also think these countries, right? Like we're talking about Korea.
Yes.
The thing is, there's also a cultural thing now. It's like because right now the world we live in is such an individualistic society compared to back in the day where the collective was always important because humans are social creatures. We thrive in that.
To be fair, there's different approaches to this mentality across the world. But I will agree that nowadays in modern society, most of people are going towards individualism.
Yeah, but that goes against biological human nature. Like if you look at it this way, because we are social creatures, we need that to survive. It's always been that way, right? So of course, your chances of surviving alone rather than in a tribe, for our ancestors, for example, would be much lower.
Yes.
So that's how survival of the fittest work right now. But now we live in an individualistic society, and I feel like a lot of it is enabled because of tech, because you're so self-reliant.
It's not just tech; it's also the fact that you need to build your own worth. You need to build your own worth. You're not
social
really
status.
Exactly, part of that essentially. So I do agree on that aspect. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Personally, I'm so old-fashioned. So I like the natural biological human. I know it's bad. I know it's a bad way to look at it.
Hey, we're still here.
Because you gotta look at
How
it.
bad can it be?
You gotta look at it neutral. Because you gotta zoom out. Okay. You have to humble. You have to not think about humans. You have to think neutrally. But we're humans, so we're incapable of that. But the thing is, like, humans being on this planet is not necessarily a good thing for the planet. Because we have the craziest impact on the planet.
That's true.
And it's not a good thing for other species too. Which is just human-driven extinction.
We're really so narcissistic when it comes to we keep saying about how our impact is so negative in the world. I know that climate change is a real thing. I'm not going to deny that or anything. And I do agree that we need to get a lot more sustainable to fix it quick. But have you realized that how insignificant we are to Earth? Really,
extremely.
Honestly, like the duration of time we've spent here on this planet is
nothing. It's nothing.
It's insignificant at some point. You can consider it insignificant. So I don't think that we're the biggest threat unless we keep on, unless no extinction happens.
Yeah, but if you look at our ancestry or just follow how humans came to be, right?
Okay.
We happen to be that one. We're not special. That's not my point.
Yeah.
It's the fact that we think we are, and we're the only ones who are like super territorial.
Yeah.
We always want to divide and conquer.
Yeah.
We want one alpha all the time.
Yeah.
We have this leadership culture, celebrity worship. Like if you look at a Taylor Swift concert today, it's crazy.
I don't want to. That's the thing. I don't want
to. But that's what we are. We follow.
Yeah,
we follow. True. We always like to idolize. We always find God in things. I think that's the human flaw, rather. Like I don't believe a lot of other species in this planet have a God, but humans have this thing which is like we must have an alpha. Every ape tribe has an alpha. Every human tribe has a leader, has a boss. We need a hierarchy. I feel like people have this.
But I think most of the time people don't realize this idealization comes from an instinct like that to
Where do you think it originates from? I'm sure it's God, but besides that, where does God originate from?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm a believer. So God aside, there's also been throughout all history, you hear about people making someone into a deity. They talk about someone so much so that they become, in the eyes of many people, like a god.
Yeah.
And that's the deification of a lot of people. Must have happened over time. So I don't think there's an origin. Like I said, like you said, I mean, it's probably an instinct. But why does this instinct come? To me, one of the simpler answers is that this instinct comes because the Creator put in the body, right? So that for you to seek the right God.
Okay. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Well, there's a lot of interesting ways to think about religion, to be honest. But a lot of people dismiss it for traditional, super.
I mean, I have so many different takes on religion too.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a religious person,
Okay.
but I love looking at how different people view it. Like what you gave me just now is a whole new perspective to leadership, right? You're saying it was God given for us to determine the right God, right?
Well, that's one way to think about it, but I don't have the right to be like that. It's the absolute.
Of course not. That's just your
my perspective.
Yeah.
But to be fair, that my way of thinking has driven how I view religion specifically a lot over the years. To be fair, because I had to separate a little from the crowd that I was. I had to look outside, see what's different, and look at non-believers, believers, the way they approach how the world we live in is, right? And why they, like, for example, you could say that atheists have more reason to care about the earth. For example, let's say. Because theists would believe in a heaven after life or something,
right?
But then it's also part of the duty of the believer to still take care of the place they're in, right? It's not like, I'm going to heaven after this, ciao y'all, I'm just gonna litter as much as I want, screw your oceans, right? You can't do that either, So you gotta shift between perspectives.
Because I know people who do that, who have a scapegoat mentality, like religion is my scapegoat. Everything is like religious reasons, bro. I'm like, fuck out of here, bro.
Well, to be honest, it's easy for a person to rely on religious reasons, but you gotta get out of the comfort zone a little bit, in my opinion. Although that's very frowned upon by a lot of people.
Which shouldn't be. I think it should be normalized because that's the only way forward, really. If you don't put yourself in a tough spot, you never improvement only comes from being somewhere. Where
I think you can at least discuss it. You can't just dismiss everything that seems out
conversations.
Of
that's as simple as that. People are not willing to have conversations today.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from?
Oh, dude.
Why the lack of dialogue?
I honestly don't know. I think it's mostly miscommunication. I think if people had more time to think about what they really feel, it would lead to a lot of clarity. It would lead to a lot of issues not being, bubbling up. Yeah. But then another issue is probably people being ingenuine, So I want something, so I will tell you another thing to manipulate you into getting me that thing, So
this is the human psyche, right?
Yeah, probably.
I think there's also external sources, external factors, like governmental ones, perhaps.
Governmental?
This is more tinfoil hat shit.
No. I'm very tinfoil, bro. Let's put on our tinfoils and get it.
Think like you're this person who's constantly distracted by this machine and these ads that are catered to you, this life that you live is so tech focused that you think like, because a lot of our worlds are just that, right? We're part cyborgs at this point. You get out without a phone, you feel like a limb is missing.
Yes,
you know
honestly, that is 100% true.
Yeah, and like we're partway there. Maybe Neuro-link is the next step, but the point is we're halfway there. We're connected to this thing, so I feel like a lot of distractions come through that. Our thoughts are shared between me and the computer rather than me and another human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I definitely think this is intentional. So basically, you're saying that technology is not an inhibitor, but it does make a little bit of a blockade between people. I would agree that technology has an other purpose of like messing with people, but I don't think in this term. Because otherwise, why were people disagreeing before technology?
I'm not trying to talk shit of technology here.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say,
love our technology.
I like tech. I love tech. It's not nothing but good for me. But the point is, I think what I'm trying to say is it's more capitalism, right?
Yeah.
It's not tech. Like tech is just misused by capitalism. That's all I'm trying to say. Like you can easily be on your phone and get productive, And you can connect with real people as well.
I mean, to be fair, the world has.
Finally.
Yes. God bless whoever. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless.
All right. So, I think there's a lot of ways for tech to really mess with us, though. Like it doesn't. It's not just the capitalist mentality that can utilize it. Thank you. Well,
Can I chime in on this one? I do feel the disadvantage of tech in terms of physicality. Okay, I am a graphic designer. I work on screen 24/7.
okay.
And after I get off the screen, I feel so drained.
So
from
after a while,
looking
it's a
at the
handicap.
screen. Yeah, it's a handicap, particularly for my eyes, for my limbs, because I don't move my legs. I don't move my back. I don't stretch after a while. Hence, when I meet people, I'm like,
That I could see being a capitalist or a
But
government
tech
type
is-
of maneuver. To
Tech
be
is
honest.
such a polarizing thing because there's some people who use fitness apps and use it only for hiking and all this fitness stuff, and there's some people who are just like, I just want to scroll my reel and it's making me lazy. You know what
I think the idea is that you're given the option. You're given the option to do whatever you want. But in my case, at least, this is very paralyzing. If I have all the options in the world, because I'm the type of person who wants to try everything out, like you know. So when you've been given all the options in front of you, you kind of don't realize what you want to do with it.
Right.
In the case that you use it for a job or something like that, it becomes very central to you, and you become too involved with it at that point. So, but I don't think this is the real danger of tech, at least from my perspective. It's more like how convenient it becomes. You know, how necessary it becomes at some point.
yeah, like grab more, grab.
But you're only
Just
given
random,
you're only given
You have to
choices.
rely on it.
You're only given choices as far it doesn't like it's not all the way. Like you don't really have total choice over a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
things.
true.
Like,
It's an illusion.
like today, you cannot actually choose to be phoneless.
Yeah.
You lose everything. Your
Yeah.
social life's just gone.
Yeah. I mean, you can choose to, but
Bro.
you'll be looked at as either a hippie or a.
But motherfuckers back in the day used to have a whole map of the fucking place. They used to see the stars and shit and how to read constellations.
Yeah,
Motherfuckers
yeah,
would have a whole map. Now, my friend can't drive me for 5 minutes from here without Waze or Google Maps.
That's,
I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Because that's
In
the part of your
Malaysia
brain
in
that just
particular.
goes away. It's like it's reliant on fucking tech. Right?
That's true. That's true.
So I feel like it's not.
I think the biggest problem though is the fact that it's an illusion, like you said. You think you have all these choices, but at the end of the day, you still have to agree to those terms and conditions, and no one's reading that. They can put whatever they want to in that, you know. TikTok has half of the data in your phone essentially, just because they
Social media.
Yeah, they told
And
you.
even shit like recently, if I say, yo, I want a bucket hat nowadays, and then I'll see like a bucket hat suddenly add on my Instagram, that's horrifying shit.
This is super creepy to me. How are we allowing phones to just tap into our minds?
Look at it this way, right? It's
Don't tell me
it's-
it's AI
no,
listening.
no, it's not AI. It's a device, right? That has the capabilities. It's got a camera. It's got a mic. It's got your data, how you analyze things, who you talk to. If you're telling me you're not being recorded, you're just naive. Right?
Okay, now that's
Like,
understandable,
there's
but it doesn't mean that it's okay to be recorded.
But here's
Like,
the thing:
Okay.
they do give you these disclaimers. Like
They do?
when you unlock a new phone, there's this whole million-page long fucking thing
Terms
that you
and
agree to.
conditions,
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, but you don't know. They actually write it in there, but we have to agree to it because you just get on the fucking phone.
But that's just freaking mass manipulation. Like I'm telling you, it's
It's
such
done well.
an illusion. It is done extremely well, and it makes me think: how long have they been planning this out? Honestly,
Because we are reward-based creatures. We are not gonna do something that doesn't help our pockets, right?
Yes.
We don't get smarter. We don't make money. We don't
But-
innovate tech without some benefit. Right?
and that's 100% true. But this tech right now, or the setup that they have at this moment, is very well thought out to the point that you have to question: really, have they because it's again, let's put our tinfoilers back on, right? So the idea is that I'm trying to reach for here is that they seem to have such a good concept of how to manipulate people. It's almost as if they had planned it out ahead, which is almost impossible, okay? Because when you're planning out the technology for a phone, you can't consider what the government wants or whatever the top figures of the world wants, you know? So it can't be planned out unless there's some level of conversation about how do we do this from the start.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm questioning personally. How long have they been have they known exactly what they're doing, or did they just find an opportunity and they were like, oh, people are dumb, let's use them?
But, like,
But-
this have been occurring often. Like I feel like I've talked to you about this, but you know, in Korean media, they would suddenly publish it. This that celebrities dating this, to cover a bigger scandal, like a teacher suicide, like a group of teachers suicide
Okay.
because of mistreatment from children.
That's
So
100%
if
true.
this stuff happens, we know that those kind of shit will happen like long back.
Okay, so do you think they've just been pumping out distractions or reasons to be distracted while they're infusing this into
Well, it
our tech?
depends on what they want us to know. Right? There's a level of, because we are all governed, right? The world is run by corporations. Let's face it. And so
Sadly, at this point.
yeah, but it's like I don't want to get too deep into it, get cancelled, but
Fair enough.
I'll just stay out of it. But I'll just say this, right? Like, whenever there is an event that's happening, currently there are events that are happening, and there are distractions that could have been probably revealed to us 50 years ago, but
Okay.
they're choosing to do so now.
Yeah,
UFOs
that's
out of
100%,
nowhere,
that's 100%.
like suddenly,
Yes.
like
yes,
all
yes.
this UFO debunking
Yes,
until
yes.
now, when
That's
you need us to look at something else.
There was something about that. The U.S. government had a council. They straight up gathered.
I watched the whole thing. I'm
I
a
did-
UFO nerd. I
I
love it.
did.
Yeah.
I really want to get into that. But then
No, I just
before that,
love it.
I just want to say like, it just seemed like such a convenient time. There was a lot going on at the time that they could have wanted to take your attention away from it.
It's
And
a
they were like,
timing.
hey, there's something that happened
Yeah.
back then.
And,
UFOs
and
are
even if
around.
it's like true, is there a decision on timing? Like, when do we drop this truth bomb?
Yeah.
Like, will this truth bomb be distracting enough to get
Yeah.
people off the other one?
Okay. So they use it, even the truth, they use it for their benefit. They'll give you the truth
Yeah.
when they need to give it,
Yeah.
not when you need to know.
It's always the greater of two evils kind of situation. And you choose and pick, like, which one would be better.
But I think it's just gotten so systematic at that point. But wait, hold on.
It's
I
planned.
want to get back to UFOs because that's just such an interesting topic to me. I've never met someone to claim that they like actually watched the whole thing. It
I
was a
love
couple
it,
of
man.
hours, bro.
I love it.
Really. Okay. So do you think that these UFOs, they're the same things that have been cited back in the 1950s, or is it something new at this
But
point?
the thing about the UFO scene in general is that every UFO thing, there's like in the midst of a million stories, at least like, if there's a million stories, like I don't know, man, 900,000 of them is fake news.
Yes, that's
You know, that's just how it is.
That's
Okay,
100%.
9 out of 10
But that
times.
means
bullshit.
at least 10% is real, which is
And that's
crazy.
the thing, because nothing in this world comes out of thin air. Everything has a reference.
Okay.
So, of course, there has been things. I believe that there are some stories that are quite believable.
Yeah.
Like there are some guys who have claimed certain things that back in the 70s, like this guy named Bob Lazar. I don't know if you follow that story. You
I've
know-
heard the name.
Yeah.
Is he the guy who went
Who
on
worked
Joe
at-
Rogan or something?
Yes, yes, that guy.
I watched that exactly.
That guy.
Okay.
Yeah, so that guy's story is quite believable.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
sound like a nut case.
But it sounds insanely science fiction.
It sounds scientific because that guy knows what he's talking about.
But he put it like it's something that happened in the 70s. You can't possibly
But the
prove
things
or
he
disprove
said,
what he said.
They've discovered later.
Yeah.
Like he was talking about this element 115
Yeah.
being this unstable thing,
Yeah.
and it actually came into existence. Fast forward 2013,
Okay.
and I have in 75.
When did he come out and talk about this?
75. or 80. So it's not a huge gap, but the fact that he's talking about an element that the aliens or whatever have harnessed to use it as some sort of a fueling thing,
Mm.
whereas humans have discovered it in 2013, but it's so unstable we don't know what the fuck to do with it.
Mm.
So that's not the only thing. He discussed retina scans, fingerprint scanner, things that came to
Back in
Yeah.
back in the time, we took inspiration from. You can say.
yeah, but no one looked at Bob Lazar. And like I'm sure, like Steve Wozniak or whatever wasn't looking at him like, "Ooh, let's do fingerprint scan." No, I'm pretty sure he wasn't looking at Bob Lazar.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he developed it. It's just that because we're able to do it.
Okay.
But for Bob Lazar to get a reference like that
Mm.
at that time didn't come out in air. It's not science fiction because
Yeah.
the guy is heavily like he's like a propulsion expert,
Okay.
so he's like a proper physicist.
Alright.
And the funny thing is, when he got caught and all that shit happened, he came out to the public. They didn't even try to stop him. They kind of painted this picture of him where he was like,
He's insane.
yeah, it's insane because no one's gonna believe you,
He's actually
motherfucker, and no
crazy.
one did. Right?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, when he came out and said all that, they wiped his records. He worked in Los Alamos lab,
Mm.
right? People in Los Alamos know him.
Yeah.
So he could prove it when he went there, like, guys, I work here, this is my desk. He knows
Yeah.
the whole layout.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Well, that
It's
has
not
to
in the
be really
records.
painful, actually.
yeah, but how sus is that?
Mm.
You're telling me this random guy who knows all about physics suddenly doesn't, and he was like one of those crazy out-of-pocket people who was just like, he had a jet what do you call it, like a jet engine built in the back of his Honda. That's how
Yeah, I've heard about
he's that guy.
That's mad. I want to see that. I'm a
He's him,
mechanical engineer.
right?
I need to. He is.
But that time he was young. There was this young kid. They were like, "We can't crack this fucking UFO thing. We're gonna bring this guy in, see what he can do." But because they couldn't figure it out, they're like, let's find someone who thinks outside the box. But the fact that they wiped his Los Alamos records, the fact that they wiped his MIT, like he went there for a course or whatever, gone. MIT, I don't know, I might be misremembering, but they wiped a lot of his records. So, and his friends cannot be contacted because they've been told to stay out of it.
Yeah, okay.
So that sucks.
They're probably hit with an NDA. Like,
Exactly. So
don't talk
stories
about
like this make me believe it more.
Okay.
When there's people who are not talking out their ass.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of people when they talk, you know it's bullshit.
But then the it just goes to say that like those people talking. Do you think the same people responsible for wanting him to seem insane are the same people driving others to act to like I've seen this, like say, you know, to pump out a number of witnesses so that they lose credibility all in all? Or do you think people just love to jump on the bandwagon?
I
and
think
be like,
there are,
I saw UFO.
there are some similar instances that are uncanny.
Okay.
Like the ones that are like abduction ones
Okay.
that usually happen in your bed.
These are the hardest to
You
believe.
go missing, and then they look for them for. There's another guy who was abducted back in the 80s something, but then they didn't find him for a week, and then they found him in his bed, back in his bed, like nothing happened. So he disappeared for a week. His family couldn't set out of that. So
And that could have been just any kind of abduction.
but there was a search party. I'm not saying I believe this. All I'm
Yes.
saying is that story aligns with a lot of other UFO stories, like in
Okay.
Brazil,
Okay.
in like countries that are not US.
So there's a
That's where there's
specific
credibility.
key stories where you can drag the highlights of what seems
Yeah.
to be real.
I mean, the human animal is one that exaggerates a lot.
Yeah.
Our memories are not perfect. We always add a little bit of spice, forget some spice here and there.
That's true.
We replace it. Memory is not perfect,
Yeah. It's,
but some things that stay intact just do. Like Bob Lazar's story since '75 till fast forward 2023 is the same exact
and you
story.
still find things that match within the story.
Word by word.
essentially. Yeah.
Which to me, that's the only guy that I'm like, okay, that's something that, because there's a lot of UFO stuff I like to believe in because I like to believe it. That's
yeah,
me.
Yeah, yeah. No,
But
that's
the Bob
understandable.
Lazar one is one human reference that I'm like, okay, that one.
Okay, that one you have to look back and you
Yeah.
can't. You can use it as a debate material,
And-
whereas the other
and
ones you're
since-
just like, I like it.
And then after his podcast with Joe Rogan and all that stuff, I think 2020, like the COVID era and all, this the Pentagon started acknowledging that they've been studying UAPs. They had a task force for that. And
But
then-
what's crazy to me is that they don't really get. There's no one really holding them accountable for what they cancel. Like they canceled them. They canceled them before canceling anyone was cool. All right, back in the 70s, and they do this very often. Like they did something very similar with. Oh well, not the government, but media at least did something very similar with Dave Chappelle, right? Where they were like, that's another story. But essentially, Dave Chappelle was like.
the trans stuff.
Have you heard? Yeah, I don't know what it was that got him canceled back then. The trans stuff is very recent.
No, he's been at it since 2017.
Really?
Yeah.
And no, that's recent to me. What I'm talking about is way back in the
Ah, okay.
2000s. He was canceled. Oh yeah, he had a. This is a very different from the UFO and Bob Lazar's story, but I'm talking about how really you can cancel someone just by being the powerful person, and no one will hold you accountable for it. So in Dave Chappelle's case, what he did was he had a show with Comedy Central, and it brought them a lot of big bucks. But at the beginning, they had no interest in it. They had no interest in showing it, in showing the pilot. But when it did show success, they didn't want to give him all the money because they were like, the contract is, it gives you too much money for the contract to be valid. So we're just not going to go with that contract. They were
I think
just
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I remember reading something
Yes.
like this. Yeah.
And essentially what happened was he was like, do you guys realize if I went and I told my fans that I made you all this money and you don't want to share it with me, you know they're going to hate on you, right? Essentially, that's what he said. And they were like, by the time you go back to your home country and you tell your fans, they're going to think you're a coke addict.
Yeah.
And when he did go to his hometown, that's what he looked like to people, right? Because they spread the rumor. It was already done.
Yeah, the funny thing is like,
Media power is very, very strong, and it truly depends on who plays it generally.
But then at the end of the day, this comes to surface. Years or decades later, the same with Bob Lazar's situation, this comes to surface. People know that someone has been lying to them. And what happens? The Pentagon admits that there's UFOs, but no one really asks, well, why did you tell this guy you were a liar? Or why did you claim that he was a liar and meddle with his records, like you said? You know, mess with the people, or did you hit anyone else with an NDA? Did you refuse to let anyone talk about this? No one asks these questions.
the thing is, they have a list of questions. and they're not allowed to discuss a lot of things. That's from higher ups. That's the fucked up part.
The fact that you can't discuss something is
It's closed. That's the problem.
Yeah,
that's how you not get anywhere because conversation is limited. That's the problem.
But that's messed up. That's like
I know.
Yeah.
We want to see it, but it's not there. Otherwise, we'll get the 6-hour version. But we get a 2-hour TV show at best. It's scripted.
That's true.
So you only get to say the bits that will get people a little bit. Whoa, is it real?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they want to get out there. They don't want to say like, yeah, we've been experimenting, we've been blah blah blah. You don't need that shit. So
it's not just they don't need that shit. They would work their ass off to make sure no one talks
bro,
about
if
it.
you've kept a secret for 100 years, you can keep it for 1 million. That's I believe it. Like if you really want to keep one for the good of whatever the fuck reason you think is
For the good or
justified,
bad.
or your pockets, whatever, you'll do it.
Okay.
That's the thing. And the thing is, it's even as for us, like our knowledge is so limited. We get knowledge from the same people that, run the show. So it's like if they're running the narrative, then whatever we learn is just whatever they want us to learn.
That's absolutely true. At the end of the day, there's this quote that's like, okay, I'm just gonna admit this quote is taken straight up from One Piece, which is an anime / manga. Alright? And
The anime guy.
yeah, I am. I hear the criticism in your voice.
No, give me top 3.
My top one is One Piece. I'm incredibly biased, but yeah, there's a quote that goes like, "What's justice?" And who gets to decide what justice is? Well, it's the person who won, right? Like for example,
Yes.
we could be hearing
Yes.
a very different story if Hitler had won. I'm just saying.
I was just saying this the other day.
We could be.
I was saying this the other day. I was like,
Yo,
history
quit that podcast.
is written by the victors.
That's 100% true.
And when you take over, when there's an invasion that happens or whatever, you don't just
You don't
switch
let
the
them
narrative.
Yeah.
You burn down fucking libraries,
Exactly.
bro. Whatever holds information. The
Exactly.
Library of Alexandria was burned.
Yeah.
We don't know what the fuck it was holding.
Exactly.
But you can write the story however. If Hitler had won today, who'd be the villains?
Hmm?
Yeah.
It makes you really question how things are, the truth of things, and how much of the things we know about the past is true. I'm not talking just about the world wars. I'm talking way before that. Things can get twisted, and if you twist something back in the 1800s, that lie becomes amplified.
Yeah.
It doesn't just stay as a lie, and
You have to craft a lot of lies
Yeah.
as well in the process. A lot more.
to make more believable. But eventually people stop questioning because people stop caring.
Yeah.
And it just becomes whatever the person who won wants at the end of the day. Which is, again, very twisted. But that's how the world works, I guess.
A lot of heavy topics, man.
I told you.
Let's
I
lighten
warned you. I warned you. I
Let's
read too
lighten
many
this up.
encyclopedias, bro.
Sup with your hair, man.
Man. We had to come with this, alright?
Yes, let's
I've been
talk about
growing it for maybe a year and 2 or 3 months now. I don't know. I
How do you
stopped
maintain
counting.
that shit?
I do the bare minimum. So that's what I do. I
Just
put
wake up.
no, that's bare minimum to live.
I just wake up. Show up.
Today I woke up. That's
Wow.
it. No,
Woke up
but
like this?
shampoo, conditioner, and that's it essentially. That's
What kind of shampoo, what kind of conditioner, just oil? This is a
no.
topic we need like Yaz.
I don't.
Uh,
I only use shampoo to just clean it out, and then conditioner, basic. Again, I don't know anything about hair products.
the first time.
The way I use my hair products is I mix my conditioner and hair mask together, and I just apply them.
You do this hair mask, premium shit, man.
But I'm pretty sure that's not the way you use that shit, right?
You never know.
You don't get a cigarette and stick it up your nose. That's
Every
not
new,
how it works.
every new
right?
cuisine is like experimental. So
I
we
mean-
never know.
It works for me, right? I mean, to an extent.
Rick Sanchez, Mexican Rick. The first time I saw you,
Yeah.
I would not imagine you have this hair because you had it all set back,
Tied up.
tied up.
Yeah.
And I remember saying you look like Mexican
Wait, can you show
ballerina.
the camera
Yeah,
the difference when you tie your hair up?
Sure, I can do that. I
What
don't
is
mind.
your tie?
I remember saying.
I have mine. I actually.
I remember you saying you look like Mexican ballerina.
No. I said
And-
you said that. I said Mexican lumberjack because I was wearing the flannel tucked
Right,
in and all.
yeah.
Yeah, and I look
But
like.
you look Mexican, right?
Yeah, but
And
that's
you
the
told me you were
mustache.
Sudanese, and I was like, that's the whitest Sudanese motherfucker I've ever met in my life.
Whitest for some reason Latin American.
Yeah, like-
easy you've ever met.
Like, what's
Wait,
the
can you
word?
check your actual genetics whether you have like,
I want
this?
to. I'm so desperate, but this is an interesting topic because I actually like. My parents are born and raised in Sudan, But then I ask them about their parents, and shit gets real blurry.
Ooh.
Yeah, shit gets real blurry. To them, maybe it's a clear thing. At least my dad has the actual family tree. And
We used to read you.
Wow.
back in the 1800s. Nah, but all I know is that I have roots from all sorts of different places. If you don't know this, Sudan was occupied by Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, if I'm not mistaken. So I have one Turkish person somewhere. In there. Yeah. I have one Persian somewhere. Person. I don't know. And
We're
of
all
course,
mix and match, bro.
Where's the Mexican in the family tree?
it's the mustache. It's got nothing to do with the family tree.
Yeah.
Sadly.
You just look straight Hispanic.
You do.
Nah. But I need to get that test. I need to fact check this. I need to know where am I actually.
Change your diet.
When you get your test, come back here and do an update, please.
For sure.
We'll
I'm
do
always
part
down to
two.
come back here. The thing is, I can talk endlessly. So I would love to share my updates. But I'm more jealous of, well, I'm not really jealous, but I'm wondering about people who have like 100% lineage from one place.
Well, yeah, like you see the fucking Viking-looking motherfuckers.
Yeah. But they're not Vikings. at
No,
least.
but you see the strong genes in them, right? Everything from the height to the eye color to the beard.
That stuff gets me thin. For the life of me, cannot find this hair dye. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
But
I'll Photoshop it. Don't worry.
that'll probably look better than real life. I don't want that.
I was like concerned. I was like, oh my god, his whole head is not gonna fit in the camera.
You're
The
afraid
portrait
though.
We're gonna have
camera.
to deal with this later on.
No, it fits great. It's perfect.
But then, I've only seen a barber once in Malaysia. But funny story. One time, I've only seen him for me once, at least back in COVID. But one time I went to with a friend of mine who has straight slick hair, Asian, straight up. Right, and he did his hair, and as a joke, he went to the cashier and he was like, "How much would you do his hair for?" And the guy looked at me and questioned his entire existence. He was like, I don't know how to do that.
I don't know where to start.
Exactly, I don't know how to do that.
He's like, pull out the chopsticks. He's like, looks familiar.
I mean, my name is Ramen for a reason, right?
Your name is
Pull out the
Ramen.
chopsticks.
How the fuck is your name Ramen?
Look, I was young and stupid. Still the stupid part, not so much young anymore. So I realized the stupidity, but I got attached to the name. I really like it.
How did it become that? Like, what's the origin story?
Well, okay, so people butcher my name very often. I'm Abdurrahman, right? This is very hard for Malaysians to
Rahman.
say.
Okay.
Exactly. It comes from Rahman.
Okay.
I also can't just be walking around introducing myself as I'm Rahman. That doesn't feel
Yeah,
right.
living up to the hype.
But, so I'm just like, call me Ramen. My name is Abdurrahman, call me Ramen. At some point it just became...
I thought it's from the hair.
Well, that's partially true, but...
Initially, I thought it was way dumber than that. I was just like, motherfucker must really like ramen.
Eats
I was like,
Eats them
I
every
should
day.
call me fried chicken.
Yeah.
Call me FC.
You eat it every day.
I love fried chicken.
Nah, I love my noodles as well, but not that much.
What's the go-to food, man?
Huh?
What's the go-to food?
Dude, I can't complain. I eat whatever's on the table. That's like...
You're not picky eater.
I used to be when I was a kid. I didn't even eat cheese. Like,
Whoa.
yeah,
You
and-
eat cheese till this day.
no, I don't. That's the thing. I realized that I just don't like cheddar cheese. I didn't know that there were multiple. But when I was even younger, let's rewind even further. I used to have my burgers with just a patty.
Same.
No, but that's not a good thing, right?
Oh, that's so bad.
We call it bread sandwich.
Bread sandwich.
Wait.
You have two breads and stuff them with a bread in between.
African cuisine.
You eat what you can, right?
Wait, do you actually cook though?
I slightly do, a little bit, like the basics. I can make pasta. Sure, ramen. But I've said that I cook ramen, and someone was like, "That's just not cooking." Right? Elitist. But
There's
you
a
guys
lot
are
of
from
that.
the gourmet
No,
club,
no, no, no,
right?
no, I don't do
You
that.
gotta judge me.
I don't do that.
Rico
No.
president.
I don't do that, bro. Like, cause for me, I mean, I do judge hardcore. I always judge. I don't think there's anything wrong with judging, but
Just keep it internal.
no, because
Oh, really?
I think judgment is very it's productive.
Human again. Oh, productive.
Yeah,
That's
because it starts a conversation,
Okay.
and you get different perspectives from it. Because if no one's voicing out their judgments,
controversy as well.
yeah. Because if you don't voice out your judgments, there's nothing you can learn. Like you
That's
won't even know what someone else thinks.
That's
of
true.
you, right?
I often like when I'm in a Grab or something and I'm holding small talk with a driver. They say the most out of pocket shit. I'm just like, oh, yeah, alright. Like I don't disagree because even though it would give for a conversation, I'm just not the type to throw myself into discomfort like that. Even though I'm curious, but I wouldn't throw myself into a conversation where I'm like,
Yeah.
Look, you're wrong. I can't convince you you're wrong, but you're wrong.
So you would try to learn how they think.
Yeah, I try to go more along the side of their conversation. I try to see their perspective and why they think that. And then I just do nothing with it and I let them be in their ignorance. Because for me personally, I think if someone is ignorant and it's not harming someone else and you can't see any real harm in it, just let them be. For example, a lot of let's take it to a religious side again. A lot of non-religious people look at religious people as ignorant in general. I'm just generalizing, right? But if that ignorance is giving this person peace, I'm sorry about that. I should have done this from the start. Apologize.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah. So
loudspeaker, man. Talking about
let's
religion.
go. Hello. They would be happy. This person would be very happy. But then I'm just saying, like, if someone is ignorant to you, but they're living in bliss, why bother?
Why bother?
Why get them out of their comfort?
If it ain't broken. Like, I always say this to Rach, like, because the thing is,
Call out right there.
yeah, because not call it, like, basically, I say, like, because I'm not religious, right?
Okay.
But I'm envious of religious people. I see it
Because
like,
of the peace?
yeah, like,
I understand.
I go to bed thinking there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
I go thinking, like, when I'm dead, I'm just one food. It's a food chain for me.
Okay.
That's the end of the cycle.
I see. So
decomposing, done.
does this affect your life in the sense that it makes you want to achieve more from your life over here? Does it make you want?
I'm sure there is a factor. I'm sure that's there. I'm sure that's there for me. But it's also like the fact that I look at religious people. I'm like, man, I wish I had what you have. You have this inner peace. When you go to bed every night, you know that this is not the end. There's an afterlife to look forward to. Life goes on.
Are you of the opinion that you can't believe in something unless
No.
you really believe in it? Like you can't push yourself to
No,
believe in something?
I just have a problem with blind faith.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because I like being logical. It's just how I'm.
You
I
like
am.
evidence.
Yeah,
Okay.
but at the same time, I would say I'm more agnostic, more on the fence. I would say.
No, I understand that.
'Cause
Because you can't really prove it. You can't prove
Because
either
saying there's
side.
no God is so stupid.
You can't prove
That
any
is
side
so
of the
dumb.
coin. Yeah.
That's like
Look, if
that's
you,
more ignorant.
when you look at the world, it's really hard to believe that there's no higher power, or at least some sort of
Or
order.
aliens.
Yeah, well,
Trillions of universes.
you really opted for
Infinite-
aliens over God.
And what if God is? Look,
That's
look,
true. But
point
that's
is,
plural.
so many different dimensions of existence. We live in one little box,
Yeah.
and we think this is this floating speck of dust
No.
in infinite world.
100%. I used to think when I was a kid that, like, we see a certain spectrum of colors, right? Because of the visible light.
Yeah.
Scientists know that there is more.
There's more.
But they confidently claim that there is nothing else that we can't see of floating around us. I'm just saying someone could be teabagging you right now. You wouldn't know
You
if
wouldn't
it's in another dimension, right? That's the
Same with
point.
time, the way we view time. How much of time do we understand? Because
No, we don't.
the
We just-
physical space we're in,
Anti-cycle.
we're locked into this
Yes.
format, this 24-hour whatever dumbass format.
Exactly.
We don't even know how time works. We don't even know how space works. And when scientists say there's infinite universes, infinitely expanding, we can't even fathom the word infinite.
Yes.
Can you even imagine what infinite is?
No.
We're not capable of comprehending that at the same time. So it would be crazy to say that there's no aliens.
Oh my god, aliens! Get it, bro.
There's no aliens in the infinite expanding world.
It is. No, I always thought about it in aliens. When I really think about them, I don't think about them as out there, outside of Earth. I think about it more as
Interdimensional.
dimensional. Exactly,
Yeah.
interdimensional.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
I'm
in
not
religion there's a
qualified to
bit of
say
that,
this.
right?
I am.
Religion there's a bit of jinns.
It supports it, so
It
I
supports.
believe in aliens.
So you're allowed to
just-
believe it by religion.
Yes, yes, we get given a
Boom.
good cause. Like,
Your aliens are made of fire.
I mean, if you believe we're made of clay, to be fair.
I mean, we're all fungi.
Fungi. You're a fungi, but you're not made of fungi.
All fungi.
Dude, you say a lot of these puns. I'm sorry, I'm Arab. It's in our blood.
We got words. Imagine, because you like reading books, right? That's the thing.
Well, yeah.
So, imagine in a world where people are prompting AI to write the best. Like you heard the Drake song was made by AI.
I didn't, and I don't want
It's crazy good. That's the problem.
But is the beat good or is it the...
No, it's generally it's something you can listen to.
Okay.
I'll say that.
Alright.
I'm not saying you're gonna bump
But
it.
that's most of music today.
No, but that's
what
just the
makes it
first
so-
generation
Okay.
of this AI.
I mean, yeah, fair
It's
enough.
only gonna get better.
But you really think it's gonna get better? The thing about AI is it's built on human creativity, right? It
Yeah.
can't just make up something the same way.
Yeah, but
most of our work, most of us, the way we operate as human beings, like you said earlier, we don't just make shit up out of nowhere. We take things from the
Reference.
past as references and we use them,
So
right?
AI is the same thing as us.
Yeah, but then the difference in there is that humans can find, if you're a researcher, you call it a research gap, right? The little bit of window that people have missed. I don't think AI, unless you design it specifically to be able to do that, I don't think.
But
it
those
can
things,
fill
how
in.
long until they do? That's the
Mm,
question, right?
I don't think they
Because
can.
I think so. I
Mm.
think because humans are very redundant in that sense. Like this creativity, just no
Look-
offense, that's bullshit. The
Okay.
creativity thing is bullshit. I don't believe anyone's creative.
No, it's fair
I
enough.
think creativity is purely referential.
I'll tell you what I think creativity is. Creativity, in my opinion, is brainstorming towards the right ideas. Now, let me give you an example. There's an AI who was able to make a walking mechanism out of a sponge. The way they did it was they 3D printed this. They had a sponge and they gave the AI a task. They told it make it walk.
Mm.
It's a sponge. It's a literal rectangle, right? And it carved it in such a way that, from the way I understood it, I didn't read the research paper, but once it inflates and deflates, the thing can make a moving motion, right?
Okay.
You could say that this is something humans have never thought of, right?
Mm.
But then the idea is that humans have never really thought about these correct ideas. You know, they didn't reach towards the correct ideas.
But it's gathering the right things fast.
Yes,
Right.
it is. So
Okay.
it's resourceful, but it's not entirely new.
Not yet.
If you have a person sitting down in a room for hypothetically an infinite amount of time, they could eventually come up with the same things.
Mm.
And you could say that hypothetically, the more creative the person is, the faster they'll reach towards that same conclusion. But AI does it fast. That's the only difference.
But again, the resource you're talking about, the internal resource or creative person, the more creative they get is because my definition of a creative person is someone who has a lot of reference,
Okay.
who has a lot more knowledge, who studies this stuff.
I would have to disagree with that.
So how's the creativity genetic?
I
I'm sure there is a genetic aspect.
I do agree that this is a great, like, an important factor. Like, you can't be a skilled person without having a massive library of references.
Everything's practice.
Yes, but how do you change the references? How do you twist it into what you want? How do you apply your own vision onto the reference? How do you make it different from what came before? That's creativity, in my opinion. I'm not saying that that's something that AI has.
But it doesn't come out of thin air. Do you think it comes out of thin air?
Nothing does. Nothing does.
So that part again,
It's just the way you twist and match certain ideas.
yeah, but they're able to do that based off what?
Mm.
That's my question. Because there has to be a source.
Mm.
If there's no source, you're just saying it's thin air.
I still don't think it's out of thin air. But I think generally the source may be derived from references, but it's not the exact reference itself. Otherwise, we would have no creativity as we see it. We wouldn't see the sense of, oh, this is new, you know? But when you see something new, it's probably just 95% reference, 5% how you got that reference to fit together, for
Right.
example, you know?
The thing is, what I'm saying is, if AI is able to craft that Drake song or that Jay-Z song, that sounds listenable to me. And I heard it, I was like, okay, I believe that. That's very Jay-Z. And that's just for generation. Now to think like you like reading books. Now imagine you give some good prompts, and I think the writing AIs are already pretty good.
Yeah,
They
they're
write
alright.
they write an epic of the story. Would you read it? That's the question.
At the current stage, no. At
No,
the
if you
current
weren't
stage,
told it was written by AI. You know that it
At the-
changes your.
The thing is,
thought
I read whatever. Like, if I'm really interested in it, I'll read it. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't have a problem. I'm not racist against AI. I'm not like you guys. Fuck you. Fuck everything you made. I don't care. No, that's not the point. But the idea is, at the current stage, you can definitely tell the quality difference. You can tell the
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, in especially in writing, and especially in writing, there's no essence, there's no soul to the plot. There's no, like, I've read a couple children books because that's the best AI can do right now. It can't really do a good epic or fantasy because that takes, too many concepts intertwined together to actually, achieve something. Whereas a children's book story is, relatively straightforward. You have certain characters, probably 4 or 5. You have a mainstream plot that goes from A to Z, very straightforward, right? But there's still an element of how do I say this, soul to it. There's like a human soul, a human touch that right now is missing from AI.
But you know the prompts which is the impressive part for me. I agree with you, by the way. I'm just saying that it's impressive to the point where this massive library they can access in seconds. Is the fact that you can say in the style of J.K. Rowling.
See, this is my problem. This is what I don't like. In writing, you could get something with that's pretty good. But in art, for example, if you say something in the style of Jay-Z, in the style of Drake, you're straight up using this person's ability.
Yeah.
But in writing, I would love to see how that turns at least, because it's every writer is just someone remixing dictionaries, and it's just the same words being used in a different way, right? Even if you have an author who distinctly has a style, I don't know if an AI can really pick up on the nuances, the small differences that make this writer the person they are. Because unlike images where you could stroke the brush a certain way, or you could paint, and I have no clue about painting, by the way, I'm just talking out of my ass. But just saying, you could make small differences, and I believe that AI can have a visual cue. But when you're talking about words, there's too much between the lines for it.
Wait, this is a general question I want to ask. Because from the conversation we've had, we seem like to read research papers, different genres of books, and everything like that.
I read the first 20% and then I get distracted by it.
ADHD, no way.
A little bit of ADHD.
So what would you say is your favorite genre? What is the type of book that you would be drawn to?
Currently, nowadays, I like scientific books that really,
Makes sense.
the type that dumbs down really big, complex ideas into the smallest kind of things, okay? Because I need it to be the size of my pea brain, otherwise it can't handle it.
Do you read it or do you watch it online, like Joe Rogan's podcast?
No, I prefer to read these things because I always feel like this knowledge is very volatile. For me, at least, I take a piece of information, and if give it enough time without thinking about it, it goes right out the other ear, right? But when I'm reading something, it becomes part of my thinking process. I feel like it becomes ingrained. It becomes something a little bit. I get a little bit too attached to the concept at times. Yeah. But when it comes to nonfiction, I love a world like One Piece, for example, where you have a massive world, and the author does a great job to show you that there's interesting in different ways, like different islands, different atmospheres, or different ideas. So the bigger the concept, the better for me, but I need it to be dumbed down.
Okay, wait. You prefer sci-fi, but then you mentioned One Piece. Do you prefer like more grounded, down to the earth?
I like it at least to have an logical explanation. Like you can't say that this person just vanishes. Like what's the physics behind it? Give me the, or at least bullshit some sign of
that's
physics,
why comic
right?
books are fun.
Yeah, right. Because they give you some sort of some reasoning,
Something.
right? They're like he reflects all
Or just
lights.
insert word quantum.
Yes.
We don't
His
know enough about
quantum
quantum
sounds.
physics, so let's just call it quantum.
So basically, just give me whatever reason. It doesn't have to be that believable. But
Okay, wait. Okay.
Yeah.
So you watch the MCU movies?
I watched the first, like, before everything.
The series,
Thanos.
the whole series.
No. Thanos and, like, Endgame and before I watched.
Alright,
and
so
then I
would you
stopped.
say those are believable?
No, they don't put enough effort, in my opinion. They don't put
the
enough
movies
effort.
definitely don't. The comics do.
Yeah, well, probably. The comics are very wordy, and you get to read what's inside people's
I'm
minds
good,
in
right?
comics, right?
I do agree with what you say. When I do read books, I understand perspective from the first main character, the side characters,
That's
and
true.
then even
And you see
outside
inside their
perspective.
mind. You see
Yes.
inside their mind.
Whereas the
in-
movie don't display that.
they-
They just show visually like, oh, it's stunning.
And they can't. The thing is, if you had, it would be like anime does this. Anime, you can hear the internal monologue of a character, right? But very often it's boring. It doesn't move the plot forward. It just serves to say that this is like, clearly this monologue is only here to let me as a reader know that this is happening. So it stops the story from progressing.
Okay, about anime, right? You're an anime fan.
Yeah.
So, like, I've watched my fair share. It's very low compared to a lot of people.
Sure.
But the thing I noticed about Japanese writers, I don't know what the difference is, but it's like a lot of the animes have a lot of like existential problems they talk about very often
Okay.
compared to like.
I think that's the anime you ended up watching. I watched a lot of goofy shit. I'm
Goofy,
just saying.
goofy shit exists, but it's like
Stop, bro.
it's goofy shit, but most of it is at a very existential scale.
Yeah,
you know?
that's
How do you think
that's
that
true.
is?
Like One Punch Man.
Is that a
for
cultural
example.
thing? Like, what is that? What do you think?
I couldn't speak on the behalf of Japanese, but based on the sheer amount of anime and manga that I've they like to exaggerate things, like in any cartoon thing. In any cartoon, if you have a character swinging his arm, you don't just see it as a very fluid human motion. You see a little bit more,
Of course, yeah.
and a person gets flung back. Without that, element, you can't really attract people. Especially that in certain times, anime was regarded for kids. At least outside of Japan, certain anime are regarded for kids. So to draw the attention of kids, I assume you really need to exaggerate things. But then you're trying to also attract more mature audiences. So you make it into this big whole issue that it might not just be at the end of the day. But that's my best guess. I wouldn't say that this is an educated guess. This is just based on the sheer amount of data I have.
So you would prefer manga over watching anime? Right?
Nope, absolutely not true.
No.
I like manga, but it's really hard to read because, for me, it shows the author's true intention very often. And sometimes it reflects way better than in the anime. Like in One Punch Man, where the artist, not the author, he draws in such a way which is insane. You actually see the fluidity of things happening, right? But then in anime, you get the soundtrack, you get the dialogue, you get the actual ambience. There's the ambience of being in there, But to read manga, this is a very geeky thing I do. When I read whatever, wow.
We all love manga.
Yes. But when I read manga, one thing I do is I play soundtracks from anime. I play soundtracks that are familiar, so it gives a more, that's the thing. I can't really feel a connection to the manga otherwise, personally. Have you ever tried reading a manga?
I've never read a manga.
But
My
you've
friends
read
love it.
comics?
I've read comics.
What's the bias?
No bias. I just wasn't exposed to mangas.
Okay.
I was exposed to comics. I like DC comics. I read a lot of that stuff.
Have you been reading them since you were young?
No, not at all. It started in grade 10, actually.
Yeah, that's a good age to start reading comics. I always wanted to get into comics, but they have such a bad sequence of there's no. I don't know whether to watch it in chronological order or to go to this serialization or that serialization. I'm like, I just want to read Batman, and they're like, you can start here or there or there. I just want Batman.
Decades of Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Which Batman is the best, and how can I tell
There
which
is-
one is most true to
there
the
is no
story?
one.
Yeah, exactly.
And because personally, I'm not a reader. So when I meet a reader, there's always a perspective exchange,
Okay.
So whenever I talk to a reader, it's for me, I like visuals, I like movies, I like shows. I have that really dopamine addictive,
You
modern
need the
human
punch.
thing, right?
That's probably
So-
the same why manga is so
Because
exaggerated.
I don't know, my sister, she just reads through 7 books of Harry Potter in a week. And
I
I'm just
can't.
like, how
I
do you
can't.
do
I
that?
can't do that. I need to
Wait,
process.
but you're the president of book club,
See,
dude.
I won't. I don't want to seem like a hypocrite, but I'm sure there's people in my book club who've read more than me. It's being president is.
Being president of me. I'm
Doesn't
president
mean
of.
He's not the
entrepreneur-
most dead of y'all. Just saying,
I'm not. I have nothing to do with entrepreneurship.
Nah.
Nothing.
Starting a club is entrepreneurial enough on its own, to be honest.
But
But
general
it's-
question: how did you get into book club? Was it because I love books and you get into it?
I do love books. I always wanted to get more into it, but I always also wanted to be more of in a position where I get to share that with people. And I have my inspirations, at least for me personally, things that made me want to make a learning-based club, but with a more fun way than just, you're going to come here and study. No, you can't do that.
No, I
in
like what you
university.
plan to do with the book club.
The-
Initially, when you started talking about it, I was like, okay, this is a different perspective to look at it.
Yeah.
And now I'm curious too.
Okay,
And-
so if you want to know what one of my biggest inspirations for the book club is an actual library that existed at some point in history.
Alexandria.
No, not Alexandria, believe it or not.
I don't know. Man.
That's the biggest inspiration. But I was reading this book called Lost History about how Islamic history progressed, starting from around when the prophethood, but then it's not a full image on prophethood. It's more about moving forward and the Islamic golden ages and such. At a certain era, Islam really was actually not the originator, but they had this propulsion towards science and how much actually we get to know, right? I really crave that kind of look into Islam again. I crave bringing it back into the times where they were interested in translating other dialogue from other languages, getting to know more knowledge, So there was this library called the House of Wisdom. And this was made by one of the like khulafa, like khalifa is like the person after the prophet. So they had all kinds of movement, and this was one of the first actual inspirations for what today became as a college, if I'm not mistaken, a university. Yeah. And what they did back in the day is they also brought in like Greek work, from philosophers, and they looked into that. Today, you find most of religious people really down to the core about the true Lord, what actually was said and what was not said. You can't do this, you cannot do that. But what about the thinking aspect?
Exactly. I feel like this science aspect and the innovation aspect has kind of died down a little bit.
Exactly.
But so much innovation came out of the Islamic world
Exactly.
back in the day.
Exactly.
That is a very interesting.
I really crave making that kind of environment. At least I'm not like saying that this is what I wanted to become. It's very different. Our book club in general is a very different approach than any other book club. You can see a lot more into entertainment, into modern storytelling, like visual storytelling and such. So it's hard. You have to take a step back from the knowledge a little bit. Otherwise, people won't really engage as much. But to me, that has always been my main focus. A good dialogue, a good conversation should be fun. It shouldn't be, very boring.
And it should be enabled. I mean, that's part of why I did the podcast.
Honestly, I love what you guys have over here.
Yeah, and honestly, we are out of time. We're like way past the 1 hour mark.
Are we? Damn, dude. I'm so sorry.
Time flies. Time flies.
I could talk and
We
talk.
have
and talk.
we have engaging conversation.
That's really
time
good,
flies,
honestly. What's the time right now? Actually. Oh shit. Okay.
Honestly, thank you for
I'm so
coming
sorry,
in.
guys.
I mean, this was
Thank you
amazing.
so much for having me.
Plug your club anyway you like.
Yes.
That's the camera.
All right. So I didn't have anything prepared, but
Events, anything.
we are the book club, and we are going to have more events on January and moving forward. We're going to do huge things. We're going to continue with our literary lounge, which is essentially an event based on discussion, sitting down, talking, and talking about things we love, talking about things that are interesting, and so on and so forth. But we also have other things we want to do, like, I don't want to hint too much, but we want to do like a festive event where everyone can join in. So kindly join us on January and moving forward. We would love to have you on.
Alright,
Okay.
man. Keep
Thank you so
cooking.
much, Adnan.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. All right. Alright, that was really fun.
One hour.
Was it good?
Yeah.